Hey, welcome into Seahawkers Show. I know it's been a long time since I've been on here. I hadn't made a video since the days of Geno Smith from about 2, 3 seasons ago. I've gotten my Seahawks news, my Seahawks stuff from like Hawk Blogger because I barely started this page, but I was trying to do this page along with my Angels stuff because I live here in Anaheim or close to Anaheim, and I do baseball stuff for the Angels, and then I also do stuff for the Ducks. But my passion has always been like the Seahawks, and I never felt that I could give like the proper type of, because I get help with the baseball and then the Ducks and then my true crime podcast, but I don't really get the help with the Seahawks, and it was kind of on my own being out here as far as a fan. And so for me, I kind of was just like, okay, it is what it is, and I'm gonna, you know, follow. I tried to do the Seahawks coverage, but just I didn't get no traffic to the channel. And so I figured as a Seahawks fan, I'd get it from Hawk Blogger or from Locked On Seahawks and stuff like that, get my information. But there's just something about this team that just struck me this year. Still can't believe that the Seahawks won the Super Bowl. I was figuring that if we were going to contend, it'd be next year. It wouldn't necessarily be this year. And I miss doing the videos where I was doing a weekly breakdown, breaking down the big plays and stuff like that. But I think I just don't have the time like I do with the other commitments with the baseball and stuff like that. So, I just felt like the need to come on here and talk about what it meant for the Seahawks to win a Super Bowl for me and, for the fans. Because I started going to Seahawk games when I was little. My uncles took me to games. They lived up in the what is it called? What's the name of that? Kent, Washington, and they had season tickets for the Sonics, Seahawks, and Mariners. But I'm a third generation Angels fan. So growing up here in SoCal, I would go to Angel games. I could never get with the Mariners. I was a Sonics fan until they left to Oklahoma, and I'm done with the NBA. So anything out of Washington now is Seattle. And as far as the Ducks are concerned, I started rooting for them before the Kraken came around, so I could never be a part of that. But I did go to a lot of games in the Kingdom, and I went to a few games when Lumen Field first opened up, and then I started really going up there by myself. Mid 2000s and stuff like that, catching games at least once or twice a season. I'd go up there and watch the Seahawks play, and it was fun. It was great. But this season, like I'll go back to struggling through the 2005 season when the Seahawks came oh so close and they got their first chance at a Super Bowl versus the Steelers. And I think if anybody knows watching the Steelers and that Seahawks Super Bowl in Detroit, like the NFL so desperately wanted Jerome Bettis to win, and they did everything possible to give the Steelers that freaking Super Bowl. And it just felt at that time Seattle was just trying to go national and they had no fan support. The 12s weren't outside of Washington, and it was just a tough go. And so they were playing like the real 12th man, 11 Steelers and one group of referees. And man, those calls aren't made, and Seattle wins their first Super Bowl with Hasselback and Alexander and those great guys, Bobby Ingram, Lofa Tatupu, and on and on and on, right? So you move past that, and you have some years where you're back and forth in the playoffs with Holmgren. The team is getting older and they have to transition, and then you go through the tough year where you fire a coach, you bring in Pete Carroll fresh off of SC, and he does a great job with Seattle turning that first year just basically having, I think, 200 some odd transactions, and you wind up having a brand new squad when Pete comes here. So Pete comes here, does his thing. Seattle is on the cusp. They trade for Marshawn Lynch. They start getting these players, and they're decent. You have a couple struggling years where you don't make the playoffs, after Hasselback leaves, and then all of a sudden here comes Russell Wilson in 2012, and they come pretty damn close to making they get to the playoffs and just get knocked out, a play before reaching the NFC championship, which they would have took on the 49ers that year in Frisco. Instead, they get eliminated by Atlanta, but you could see something was building. Like that team was special. And the very next year in 13, the LOB is officially on the map. Seattle's officially on the map. They're feared through through the league. And you know that when you had Denver on the AFC side just tearing it up, setting records, and Seattle had to deal with the 49ers. And once they got to that championship game, it was like, oh my God, here we are. Are we going to get back to the Super Bowl? And for that play, love him or hate him, Sherman makes that great play to knock the ball back to, I believe it was Smith, to make the interception. And that's all she wrote. We went to Super Bowl 48. We won it in convincing fashion against the Denver Broncos. And then all of a sudden, Seattle has an opportunity to get their second Super Bowl back to back. After that team was built, I mean, going in, winning the first Super Bowl, I didn't know what to think. Living down here in SoCal, people hated the fact that Niners weren't there. You have a lot of bandwagon Niner fans in the LA market. You still do to this day. And living down here, Rams fans really aren't a thing. They're trying to make them a thing, but they're not. But at the time when Seattle beat the Niners to move on to that Super Bowl, people just like Seattle wasn't mainstream, but they were getting there. And they were getting popular. When they finally get to the Super Bowl and then win that Super Bowl, I started seeing Seahawk jerseys everywhere. And I'm like, finally, people are noticing, Russ and those guys, say what you want to say about them now. But back in the day, those guys are legendary for not only exposing the rest of the nation to the Seahawks past, people actually doing their homework, looking at Steve Largent, Dave Craig, Kurt Warner, on and on and on, Sean Alexander, Hasselbeck. They did their history on them, but now you have a Super Bowl winning team, the first time in Seattle outside of the Sonics in '79. That's all you had was the Seahawks. So that parade was massive. And it was like, get the monkey off your back. And the fans, including myself, all the way down here in SoCal, were like, oh my God, I can't wait to repeat. I want to repeat. And in 2014-15 season, it seemed inevitable. You thought it was going to happen, basically. You thought it was going to happen. Seattle was just too good that year. And they breezed through everything in the 14th season, and they got to the freaking Patriots. And Tom Brady, and say what you want to say, but Seattle played their ass off in Arizona. And you thought, man, they're going to pull this one out. I mean, to this day, nobody remembers Jermaine Kearse's amazing catch. Nobody, except the hardcore Seahawks fans, because most of the time with that game, you just want to block it out. Like it never happened because of the outcome. Like everybody forgets what a great ending that would have been. And for years, over a decade, we've all debated as Seahawk fans, should we have run the ball? And at first that was 100% everybody should have gave it to Lynch, All you heard all year, the following year, the year after that, it didn't matter who Seattle was playing. Should have ran the ball. And to me, I'm always one of those fans where if you don't have multiple championships for your team, you're not legitimate. And I was feeling, dude, we needed that second Super Bowl. We really did. And we had it right in our hands, and we gave it to him. We gave it to him easier than Atlanta gave it to him. So Tom Brady has two of his 7 rings were given to him. And that I could not stomach, as most Seahawk fans. A lot of people were like, well, he still could have passed it right there, but it should have been a bootleg, or it should have been a fade. It should have been something outside to nothing to lock it. It should have been a screen. Or Russell should have designed run, right? But all we ever saw was that stupid ass Malcolm Butler play year in, year out. And it was so infuriating as a fan because it just seemed like the Seahawks couldn't get past that. And when the 15 season started, they had all the talent in the world to have three-peated. So if they had won Super Bowl 49, there's no doubt in my mind Super Bowl 50 would have been a Seahawks victory because they would have been the first team to three-peat in NFL history. The problem was there was so much infighting. They've made freaking documentaries about it. The defense hated the offense. Russell Wilson's being elevated, not held accountable, and on and on and on and on and on. It was frustrating. So after that season, the turmoil, the contracts, their window was shutting. And slowly but surely, the Seahawks started to fade back into obscurity. They weren't the freaking feared team that everybody feared all year long or all season long for the last few seasons. And all of a sudden, a division that they had crept into back in the day, the NFC West that was theirs, was starting to slip away to the Niners and the Rams. And Seattle slowly but surely lost control of that. And as players kept leaving, retiring, all of a sudden Seattle is left with Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson had a few good years, but after that, kind of tanked himself. And we made the trade of all trades thanks to John Schneider. Trading him for to Denver, getting back a bunch of picks, riding with Geno. And Geno in game one beat Russell Wilson, and the season started great 3 seasons ago. And we were thinking we're off to the races. And Seattle got to the postseason in the first year with Geno, but would get crapped on and lose in the first round of the playoffs. And then the next season, they would lose, not make the playoffs, have a bad year, and Coach Carroll was out. And then it became the Mike Macdonald show. And the first year with Geno and DK, let's see what he could do. He got us, I think it was 9 or 10 wins, but because the NFC was strong, Seattle didn't make the playoffs. And then all of a sudden there was these changes that happened in the offseason, the draft that had been going good the last few years by John Schneider, and something was building. But I think a lot of Seahawks fans like myself and you weren't expecting this. Like, I was expecting a return to the postseason as a wild card when this season started. I didn't figure Super Bowl champions. But the crazy thing was a guy who had basically played his ass off for the Vikings and Sam Darnold. And he freaking just had 2 bad games that, if you look at them and why the Vikings lost to the Lions in week 18 of 2024 and the playoffs in the first round against the Rams, is because there was no blocking. Dude got sacked something like 16 or 17 times in 2 games. You can't win like that. And they weren't relying on the run game either in either game. They were just forcing Sam to do it all himself. And for a kind of Pro Bowl year he had, it's like, I don't blame him. I mean, it just so happens he had 2 bad games in the last 2 weeks of the season. So with that being said, the Seahawks took a chance on Sam. And they shipped off Geno. And they shipped off DK. And they got some draft picks. And they started to build even more. And so going into this year, a lot of Seahawks fans, including myself, were very hesitant to see where this team was going to be and if they could make any moves to get, back to the postseason. Would they be good enough? Were they a wild card team? And week 1 meant everything. It was going into the 50th season of Seahawks football. And week 1 against the 49ers, September 7th, man, oh man, Seattle played really good defense. And they knew this team was going to be good defensively under Mike Macdonald. You'd see how bad the Ravens were without Mike Macdonald the last 2 seasons. And so the fact that he got him to play really good against a fully rested, fully healthy 49er team in week 1, celebrating the 50th anniversary of your Seahawks, Seattle came up just short by a bad play by Mr. Reek Woolen in the end zone, letting Tonjes jump in front of him instead of playing the ball. If he plays the ball in the end zone with 2 minutes left, he makes that interception. There's no touchdown, and the Seahawks win. However, he misplays it, and Seattle has to go back on offense. And credit to that drive, Sam Darnold had him in the red zone inside the 10, but Abe Lucas couldn't hold a block on Bosa straight up. Bosa comes in, and with Cooper Kupp wide open in the end zone, Darnold fumbles at the 5-yard line. Niners win that week 1 game. And then all craziness started in week 2 because a lot of people were like, well, there's Sam the man. That's what we're going to have to face. Forgetting the fact that we suffered through 3 years of Geno Smith being a turnover machine, interceptions and fumbles. They weren't able to give Sam a chance. And this defense was so much better. And going into week 2, Seattle took on the Steelers in Pittsburgh. And Aaron Rodgers, it didn't matter. Seahawks defense came to play. The special teams were there. The offense looked good. K9 looked good. Charbonnet looked good. And most importantly, Sam looked good. And the Seahawks rolled to a 31-17 victory. Then they played the Saints and they absolutely worked them. One guy that I was really missing all season who came on and had a really good 4 or 5 games to start the season was Horton. And Horton, before he got hurt, was amazing, but he had a kick return in this one for a touchdown. I think he received one for a touchdown. They blew out the Saints. And then the Cardinals was too close to call, but Seattle would win it 23-20 at the end of regulation, and Seattle would win that one. Then the prettiest matchup all year, the Buccaneers with those creamsicle whites came into Lumen Field, took on your Seahawks, and Seattle played toe to toe with Baker Mayfield. And I would say outside of that game in week 5 with the Buccaneers and the 2 games with the Rams late in the year at Lumen Field, that's the worst the defense had looked all year. They had no answers for the passing game of Mayfield. They had no defense for Stafford. But in that game, the Buccaneers Seahawks went back and forth, and you had a real good offense. I mean, it seemed like when Seattle needed Darnold to come through with some passes, some touchdowns, some big plays, he came through. And when the defense wasn't feeling it, and when the defense was, he was able to clock manage, game manage, or just make the right kind of throws. So Seattle would lose that game on October 5th and fall to 3-2 on the season. They go to 4-2 by beating the Jaguars in Jacksonville. And at the time, you didn't think of much of that game because you felt Jacksonville just was being Jacksonville. You beat them 20-12. It wasn't really a blowout, but the defense did its job. And Jacksonville didn't appear to be that good. They finished with 13, but at that time, Jacksonville, I believe, was at 500. Then the Seahawks took on the Texans, which had the second best, in my opinion, defense all season. Beat them here at Lumen Field 27-19. Seattle's all of a sudden 5-2. They would go to 6-2 on Monday Night Football by destroying the Washington Commanders in those beautiful Seahawk blue jerseys as they beat him. Horton, I think that was his last game. They smashed the Commanders 38-14. And then they took on the Cardinals, and you saw DeMarcus Lawrence score 2 defensive touchdowns on the same exact play, fumble recoveries. And Seattle would double up the Cardinals 44-22, and they were rolling. And then the game that I was at this year at SoFi Stadium, I've not missed a Rams Seahawks game because I live down here in the Anaheim, Los Angeles area since the Rams have moved back to LA. And the Seahawks, I believe, have only won twice or 3 times since the Rams have been back here in LA. It's always a tough time when they play the Rams, no matter who the quarterback is, whether it was Jared Goff or now Matthew Stafford. And Matthew Stafford was having an MVP day. And every time that I leave SoFi Stadium after the Seahawks would lose, the Rams fans are obnoxious bandwagon douchebags. And they would talk shit, and it was almost getting into a fight every time leaving SoFi Stadium. But after Myers missed that long field goal, it was actually daps and good games all the way out. For the first time, it seemed like the Rams had our respect, you know what I mean? Or we had their respect. And it was weird because usually, like I said, Rams fans are some of the worst out there next to Niner fans. So Seattle losing that game, despite the fact that Sam threw 4 picks and I believe fumbled, was huge in my mind because I felt like the defense gave it all they had. And that's the famous game where Ernest Jones IV came out there and said, "That's my quarterback. Don't talk shit about my quarterback, blah, blah, blah." And he stuck up, and you could see all season the chemistry building with the Seahawks all year. And it just so happens that that game I attended was the last game that Seattle would lose all year. They went undefeated the rest of the year. After that, they take on the Titans, and not the best defensive game, but you had a lot of offense by Sam and the team, and they won 30-24. Then they demolished the Vikings 26-0 the next week. They blew out the Falcons 37-9. And again, these are games under Pete Carroll, where Pete Carroll did not like stepping on the throat of the opponent. He did not like blowing them out. The game stayed close. But not with the Mike McDonald team. Mike McDonald's team was like out for blood. And if they got a lead, they pinned their ears back and they went at them like a rabid dog. Now, a disappointing game was December 14th when they took on the Colts. And you had all the hoopla with the return of the quarterback for the Chargers, who has like 50 kids. He came out there and he gave them everything they had. And the Colts had a late lead, but the Seahawks kicked their way to another victory, 18-16. So that set up a game that you had to freaking have. The last three games of the season were against postseason teams. You had to have them, and they controlled their own destiny. You had the Rams at home. It's time to beat McVay. It's time to beat these jerks. But you had Puka Nakua, and Puka Nakua was out there trying to rev up these guys and trying to, to make it so that the Rams would have home field advantage. So much was on the line. But the 12s were there in full force, and they rocked Lumen Field. The Seahawks didn't have the best day on defense, but Sam the Man played his best game. He threw some clutch touchdowns, made some clutch runs, all kinds of great plays in this game. Seahawks erased a 16-point deficit with only minutes to play to send it to overtime, only for the defense to allow Puka to score a crazy touchdown. Seattle, seeing the fact that a tie would not help them, scoring the touchdown with Jackson Smith and Jigba, who was the best player on the field all year for the Seahawks, getting the lead and, well, was the only way, obviously, to win. There wasn't enough time. The Rams, the overtime rules are stupid in the regular season. We were headed for a tie if Seattle didn't go for two. And credit Mike McDonald. He threw it all on the line. He put it all on black or red, whatever you do at one of those Russian roulette tables in Vegas, and it worked. They got the 2-point conversion, and I have never, ever seen the fans go crazier in a regular season game than that one. I'd say maybe the Fail Mary was another game where the fans went like just nuts, but that last second victory was the talk of everything down here in SoCal, all around the nation, because what an epic win. Rams fans were salty as hell, and it was hilarious. And Seattle won 38-37 in an epic game. I think it was NFL Network's game of the season. So with Seattle winning that game, it set it up for the Panthers. You got to take care of who's in front of you. And the Panthers have been winning a lot of games lately, but Seattle had shut them down in Carolina 27-10. Again, the 12s traveled and made that a home game. So then we have the game of all games. It seemed like these last three games were huge. So they go to Santa Clara with an opportunity to wrap up the number one seed and have Seattle host the postseason games all at Lumen Field, control their own destiny to then return to Santa Clara. And again, this wasn't a pretty game at all. At this point, the Niners had a lot of injuries, but they were still playing like a team on a mission. And Seattle gave it to them defensively, shut down Brock Purdy and all of his weapons. And the Niners defense played an epic game to keep it as close as they did. Seattle missed on a few throws, missed on a few opportunities, but they played to their defense and they played ball control, and they won an epic grind out game with their arch rivals, defeating the 49ers and taking that division crown. And they were able to celebrate in their locker room in Santa Clara, and you won 13-3. Now, at this point, after clinching, as a Seahawks fan, you knew that the previous three times that Seattle had reached the Super Bowl, all three times they had clinched home field advantage. They had never made the Super Bowl as a wild card team at all, or even a number two seed without having home field advantage. So now the fact that you have an opportunity to go 4-0, hell, the Seahawks took full advantage. And just 2 weeks later, after the Niners upset Philly in Philly, Seattle came back with some revenge on the Niners once again and took it to them and beat them. And from the opening kickoff, that's all they needed from Rasheen Shaheen, as he scored a touchdown. And still, I want the Seahawks next year to go after that kicker, because that was Bush League trying to hurt Shaheen on that trip. But either way, Shaheen scores that touchdown. That's all he needed. The defense beat the living shit out of the 49ers, especially Brock Purdy. And all of a sudden, Seattle won 41-6, and they were smoking cigars in that freaking locker room. Now, to all my Seahawk friends and the people I have on the chats and stuff like that, the pages I'm a part of, I was celebrating, and I'm like, that's what you want to do. You want to beat your arch rival. You want your rival in the next game. And sure enough, the Seahawks got the Rams in the next game. And then you started thinking to yourself, one game at a time, but if you're able to upset the Rams or beat the Rams in Lumen and go to the Super Bowl, you have defeated your two hated rivals. And you're going to go to Santa Clara with an opportunity to win it all in the very rival stadium. So before we even got to that point, Seattle did a great job of going back and forth. And again, Sam Darnold had another great game. Seattle would hold the lead. They'd make a few mistakes, though, to keep the Rams in the game. Right when they were up 2 scores, there was a Reek Woolen terrible 15-yard penalty on a 4th down that would have given the ball back had he not committed that penalty. And they would have had an opportunity to milk the clock and not give the Rams an opportunity. But what happened? The Rams, well, they went down, scored with Puka. He kept his night going. Seattle would hold the ball, go back and forth. There would be some tense defensive play. But Seattle and their punting and everything came together, and Seattle would hold on to a 31-27 win over the Rams, as the Rams didn't go for it, the field goal, which would have made it a 1-point game. On 4th down, it was knocked down by Witherspoon, who was, again, another unsung hero of this team. And Seattle would go to Super Bowl 60. And I think for Seahawks fans like myself and around the nation that are outside of Seattle, wish we were there to see the Space Needles shoot off the fireworks and hear the shotgun blast and the fans just yelling like we saw online. It's different to be there in the city. I'm down here in SoCal, and there's a couple bars in Culver City and other areas that have a lot of Seahawks fans, and they represent, but it's not the same. So I was feeling great for the city of Seattle and for all the fans out there getting an opportunity to exercise those demons, man. As Jim Carrey said in that movie, exercise the demons. You had an opportunity, man. And it's not the Tom Brady Patriots, obviously, but it's the Patriots nonetheless. And the fact that the Bills weren't good, the Bengals weren't good, the Chiefs weren't good, the AFC was weak. It was there for the taking. And I think every Seahawks fan was trying to, including myself, not overlook the Patriots, because I was already thinking, what an amazing season. Nobody expected us to get the number 1 seed. Nobody expected Sam Darnold to fit in this good. Nobody expected the chemistry from all the players to love one another and to have such a great rapport. Nobody expected Mike McDonald's plan and John Schneider's plan to come together like this. Nobody expected us to beat the shit out of both of our rivals in the postseason to get to, it can't get any more perfect than this, right? And that's when we found out we're playing the Patriots. And now it's an opportunity to get guys who are like Sherman and Lynch and others that it stings them. And to me and fans like me and you that live in Seattle, to sit back and be like, man, dude, like I fucking hate the Patriots. I hate the fans. I hate the fact that when it's Malcolm Butler all over again, if we win, that shit goes away. And some of you like can still remember 2005, and I do too. But I think 2013 erased 2005, or at least made me tolerate 2005. But then 2014, 15, whatever you want to call it, just made it hella bad. And so I needed another palate cleanser. I needed this franchise to win this second one. There was no way the Seahawks were going to lose. I don't care if you felt the Super Bowl was against the Rams. You had to feel nervous. Even though the fan base in Santa Clara was 70 to 75% to 20 to 25% to 30% for the Patriots, you still felt that talent-wise the Seahawks were better. But anything can happen. It's not a 7-game series, so it's not like the Mariners would fall down or something. It's all about, could you show up in the most important game? Could you win the most important game? And from the get-go, I'll tell you, I felt through the game with the Patriots. When Malcolm Butler rang that stupid bell, I wanted to shove that bell up his ass. I wanted the Seahawks to just rip them a new one because they deserved it. They don't deserve another Super Bowl. It was ours to win. We have to win it for the Seattle Seahawks and the fan base. The city of Seattle and the state of Washington deserved it. The 12s all around America needed that one. Me, down here in Anaheim, I needed it. I needed bragging rights in the city of Los Angeles, Anaheim, whatever you want to call it, and the stupid-ass bandwagon Rams fans and all the Niner Nation South. I needed to have this Super Bowl win so I could tell 49er fans, shove it up your ass. The last time you watched a Niners Super Bowl win was on VHS. The Rams Super Bowl was controversial. They shouldn't have been there in the first place. So we needed more than just talking points, because then it's always thrown in our face. Malcolm Butler should have ran it, should have ran it, should have ran. Well, you know what? I don't know about all, I can't speak for all Seahawks fans, but this Super Bowl was a palate cleanser for me, getting rid of the stain, the stench, the taste of 2014-15 season. This Super Bowl victory and dominating performance by that defense, which I'm so glad we didn't say LOB 2.0. I'm so glad we didn't come up with something just generic. I love the dark side element of the Seattle Seahawks. I love the fact that they branded themselves something different. I'm glad that from day one, when Mike McDonald came in here, he said, I'm going to do something different. We're going to establish our own legacy. And they have. And the fact that they went out there and they dominated Drake May, a guy who was one vote short of MVP next to Stafford, which I still don't get. Stafford should have been a runaway, and I hate the Rams. But Seattle's defense putting it on them, kicking field goals, playing defense, just there was no answer. And Kenneth Walker getting the MVP. When I look back at the season, I don't know how, like I'm more confident in this Seahawks team to repeat than I was in 14 with Russell Wilson, the LOB, and Baldwin and all those guys, Marshawn. Like, this team is so much younger. This team is so much faster. And they've got so much upside, so much. They have 70 million in cap space to spend. Very few free agents to worry about. Like, this team has a window of 2 or 3 more years at a championship level. That's if they play their cards right, they could still have a ton of money. It's scary, but great at the same time, because I didn't feel this way about the 14 team in going into 15. I was like, man, I like the team, but they showed a little bit of, wear and tear, but they still had a great, amazing season, got back to the Super Bowl. I don't care who comes out of the AFC. I think with this team, I don't fear anybody. And that's an amazing feeling to have in today's football of salary cap and whatnot. I feel the Seahawks can easily repeat next year. Because you think about it, even with a new offensive coordinator, this team is going to be, and even if they get Kenneth Walker, they should get Charbonnet by half the year back. You get a reliable backup to go with Kenneth Walker. I'm pretty sure he's going to get franchise tag. This team could be something special next year. And yeah, I still have the target on their back, but I have a feeling, Sam will play better. The defense will be better. I mean, dude, you have Witherspoon and others. I mean, what a great defense. The pass rush, what we were clamoring about as fans. They went after and took care of the trenches. They took care of the offensive line, took care of the defensive line. Look what happens. You win in the trenches, you win the game. And that's how good the Seahawks are and were this year. So going into 2026 season, I feel very confident. I feel confident that this team, quite frankly, can do some really good things moving forward. And I think this team can be back. And although, to wrap this video up, for them to go and beat the Niners twice, to clinch on their home field for the division, to then eliminate them in Lumen, to eliminate the Rams, and then to go into Santa Clara and beat the Patriots, who were your nemesis, exercise the demon, get your second world championship of all time, and do it on the 49ers field. I don't know how you can beat that. I don't know how you can top that. The only thing I know that the Seahawks will find some style and some grace at the same time to do it and to satisfy us fans. I'm predicting, with the 2 Super Bowls we have now, we're now one of 17 teams who have multiple. We're one of 17 teams that have multiple titles now. We could possibly get into that third range. It could be a back-to-back. I feel really good about next year. And if you think about it, 3 to 5 year window, maybe we pull in 2 more rings, 2 more Lombardis. But next year, I feel very confident. And you know where the Super Bowl is next year? It's in SoFi. I'm still going to take the approach of one game at a time. Just keep everyone healthy through preseason. one game at a time, week by week, like we did, and then we go from there. But I have a feeling at the end, Seattle might be hoisting another title. I feel really good about that. I like the team that this organization's put together with John Schneider and Mike McDonald, and obviously Cody Allen or Jody Allen. It's a great, great foundation for Seahawks football. I've never been more proud to be a Seahawks fan. There's been a lot of lean years since I grew up as a kid, watching Rick Meyer, the end of Dave Craig's career, watching like Stan Gelbaugh, Dan McGuire, like cheap ass quarterbacks until we got John Freeze and then Rick Meyer and so on and so on. I mean, we got Brock Heward came in there, Trent Dilfer, Matt Hasselbeck. I mean, the team has flipped so many times. The fact it took us over 20 years to bring back the throwbacks, it was nice to win, man. I mean, I still can't tell you how much I celebrated down here in SoCal, in Rams country and Niners country, the Seahawks winning. It was a beautiful thing, man. There's nothing like being in Lumen Field, around Lumen Field on 4th Street up in Washington. There's nothing like the 12s in general. Out of all the teams that I support, I only support one football team, and that's the Seahawks. And they've always been, win or lose, some of the greatest fans, some of the nicest fans. I mean, it literally feels like a family. The only time I think Seattle fans turn it up a notch and get outside of that closeness is against the Niners. And by God, I say go for it. Everyone has to have a rival. Like back in the day, I remember when they were briefly in when I'd watch them in the AFC West versus the Raiders. I know that we hated the Raiders. We could never beat the Chiefs. Elway was I couldn't stand Elway, and then the Chargers were the only team that we fought for. Nowadays, the Seahawks major rivals are the Niners, but 1B is the Rams, and then the Cardinals are just a forgotten. Nobody cares about the Cardinals. Cardinals are an afterthought. They always will be. But man, I'm looking forward to next season. I mean, I like Combine's only a couple weeks away, but just what a magical season, guys. I had to come on here. I know I haven't done a lot of videos in a long time. It's not like I have a bunch of subscribers. I started a few years ago thinking that I could blow this thing up, but it just never took place. And again, I watch like Hawk Blogger now. I watch a lot of these other guys on Locked On and get my Seahawks fixed there because the national media still doesn't give the Seahawks their respect. But I just felt the need to make a video, ramble on a little bit. Again, I make Angels content and Ducks content, and then I also do true crime. So it's like I don't have the time to do football anymore, and I have teams working on that kind of stuff, but not on Seahawks stuff. I would love to do more Seahawks stuff. So maybe in the comments, you guys can give me some motivation to do it. I used to do breakdowns of each team or each game that the Seahawks had. I had a film session of what they need to look out for, what they could do better, and then showing the highlights too. So it was like twice a week, but didn't really stick. It's hard to do, but I just had to talk about how much I love the Seahawks and how much I'm so proud of these guys to get us our second title, especially when it was unexpected. And I look forward to more titles from this team because I think they can do it, man. Coach McDonald's just a different beast. And I love this team. So hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment, like or subscribe at least. And we'll catch you on the flip side. Appreciate everybody staying on.